The night before, I was supposed to sign the papers that would hand my father's entire estate to my stepbrother. My grandmother came to me in a dream. She had been gone for 6 years, but she looked exactly the way she did the last Thanksgiving before she died, reading glasses pushed up into her gray hair, flour still on her apron. She didn't smile. She grabbed both of my hands so hard it almost hurt and said, "Don't sign anything tomorrow. Go to the hospital before visiting hours. Bring your phone." Then the kitchen dissolved and I woke up gasping at 5:03 in the morning. I told myself it was stress. I told myself grief does strange things to the mind at 3 in the morning, but something in my chest refused to let it go. So before the sun was even up, I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and drove toward St. Vincent Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, with no idea that in less than 2 hours I would uncover the ugliest secret my family had ever kept. And before I tell you what happened next, if this is your first time here, hit subscribe, because the truth in this story only gets darker. I also read every single comment, so tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right there. I want to know who's with me for this one. Now let's get into it. My name is Rachel Ainsley. I'm 31 years old, and for the past 4 months, my father, Walter Ainsley, had been fighting the after effects of a stroke in a hospital bed 2 towns over from where I grew up. My stepbrother, Craig Doss, had appointed himself the family's spokesperson the moment the diagnosis came in. He was smooth, likable, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and used it to make you trust him. My stepmother, Deborah, adored him the way only a mother can adore a son who never disappoints her in front of other people. I had spent 4 months being told, gently but firmly, that I was too emotional to make decisions about Dad's care. So when Craig called me the week before and said the doctors recommended we transfer power of attorney to him, for efficiency, I believed him. My father had built a small chain of hardware stores across central Ohio from nothing. That business, along with the house on Maple Crest and the savings my mother left behind before she passed, all funneled through one signature I was scheduled to give at 9 that morning. I sat in the hospital parking lot at 6:40 a.m., staring at the entrance, telling myself I was being paranoid. Craig's car was already there. He'd told me the day before he had a work conference in Cleveland that morning and wouldn't be at the hospital until the afternoon. So why was his silver Audi parked in the exact same spot it always was? For a full minute, I didn't move. Maybe he changed his conference. Maybe he just stopped by to check on Dad before his flight. I wanted an innocent explanation so badly my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Finally, I got out and walked in through the side entrance the nurses use, the one that doesn't require you to check in at the front desk. My father's room was on the 4th floor, and as I got closer, I heard voices. Not Dad's voice. His was still faint and slow since the stroke. Craig's voice. Low, and a woman's voice I didn't immediately recognize. "Once she signs it this morning, none of this matters," Craig said. "Ainsley hardware becomes mine on paper within the week." The second voice, and my stomach dropped when I placed it, belonged to Nurse Patricia Kilroy, my father's primary day nurse, the woman who had smiled at me every single day for 4 months and told me my father was improving. "You still need his capacity evaluation to say he's declining," she said. "If Rachel ever gets a second doctor's opinion, this falls apart." "She won't," Craig said. "She trusts the paperwork. She trusts me. My mother raised her to be agreeable, and agreeable people don't ask questions." I pressed my back against the cold hallway wall, my heart slamming so hard I thought the sound alone would give me away. "I don't love doing this to a man in a hospital bed," Patricia said quietly. "You love the $20,000 I'm paying you to backdate that cognitive assessment," Craig answered, and I heard him laugh. Actually laugh, like this was a business deal instead of my father's life. "Once guardianship transfers to me, the stores sell to Meridian Retail Group by fall," Deborah and I split the profit from the sale. Rachel gets a token trust just big enough that she never suspects a thing, and everybody's happy. My knees nearly buckled. This wasn't a stroke recovery plan. This was a robbery, and my father was the one they were robbing while he couldn't even speak in full sentences to defend himself. "And if Rachel finds out later?" Patricia asked. "She won't," Craig said, that same easy confidence dripping from every word. "By the time she figures anything out, the stores will already belong to someone else, and there won't be a single signature that points back to me." I don't remember deciding to do it. My hand was already in my bag, phone out, voice memo recording before my brain fully caught up with what my body already knew it needed to do. I stood frozen in that hallway and let every word land on the recording. Every dollar amount, every plan, every ounce of contempt Craig had for a sister he called agreeable, like it was an insult. When I heard footsteps moving toward the door, I backed away fast, slipped into the stairwell, and didn't breathe again until I reached my car. I sat there in the hospital parking garage and cried the way you cry when your entire understanding of your family collapses in real time, silent, shaking, mascara running down into the collar of my shirt. Then I wiped my face, because I realized something. I wasn't driving home to decide whether I'd sign those papers anymore. I was driving home to decide exactly how I was going to stop them. By 8:30, I was sitting across from my father's longtime attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Barbara Holt, who had handled every legal document for Ainsley Hardware since before I was born. I played her the recording. Her face didn't change once, which somehow scared me more than if she'd looked shocked. "Do not sign anything today," she said. "Do not go back to that hospital room without me. And Rachel, I need you to understand something. What you just described isn't just a family betrayal. It's elder financial abuse and medical fraud, and both of those are felonies in the state of Ohio." I nodded, numb, gripping my coffee cup so tightly my knuckles went white. "There's a mandatory guardianship hearing scheduled for 11 this morning, isn't there?" Barbara asked, already reaching for her phone. I'd forgotten. In the chaos of the last week, I'd forgotten that today wasn't just the day I was supposed to sign the transfer. It was the day the county probate court would formally approve Craig as my father's legal guardian, with Deborah, Nurse Kilroy, and half the extended family sitting in that courtroom expecting a formality. At 11 o'clock, I walked into that courtroom in Franklin County wearing the same blazer I'd worn to 100 ordinary Tuesdays, my phone sitting quietly in my bag with a recording that was about to change everything. Craig sat beside his attorney, radiating the same calm charm he'd used on our whole family for months. Deborah reached over and squeezed his hand like a proud mother watching her son accept an award. The judge asked if there were any objections to the proposed guardianship before finalizing it. I stood up. Craig turned, confused, almost amused, the way you'd look at a child who'd wandered somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. "Rachel, what are you doing?" he whispered. "Making sure the court has the full picture before anyone signs anything," I said, and my voice didn't shake, not once. I asked the judge for permission to submit an audio recording into evidence. Barbara had already had it authenticated and transcribed that morning. She doesn't waste time. The courtroom speakers crackled, and then Craig's own voice filled the room. "Once guardianship transfers to me, $20,000 to backdate that assessment. Agreeable people don't ask questions. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom." Deborah's hand flew to her mouth. Craig shot up out of his chair, face white. "This is being taken completely out of context," he said, but his voice cracked on the last word, and everyone in that room heard it crack. "Then explain it," I said. He didn't have an explanation. There wasn't one to give. The judge called an immediate recess, ordered an independent investigation into Nurse Kilroy's conduct, referred the recording to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, and denied Craig's guardianship petition on the spot. Within 3 weeks, Patricia Kilroy lost her nursing license and was formally charged. Craig was charged separately with attempted exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Deborah, who insisted for months that she knew nothing, moved out of my father's house before the case even went to trial. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days after the hearing, an old woman I barely recognized approached me in the hospital hallway outside my father's room. It was Ruth Palmer, my grandmother's best friend of almost 50 years, someone I hadn't seen since the funeral. She took both of my hands, the same way my grandmother had in the dream, and pressed a small yellowed envelope into my palm. "Your grandmother gave me this the year before she passed," Ruth said, her eyes wet. "She told me to keep it until the day came when you needed proof that your instincts were worth trusting." Inside was a single line in my grandmother's unmistakable handwriting. "Rachel, the people who call you agreeable are usually the ones counting on you never asking a single question. Ask anyway." I stood in that hospital hallway and finally understood that the dream hadn't been random. It was 6 years of my grandmother's voice finding its way back to me exactly when I needed it most. My father is still recovering today, slower than any of us would like, but every single asset he built is still legally his. Ainsley Hardware never went to Meridian Retail Group. I moved into guardianship myself, under full court supervision, with quarterly financial reviews Craig never once had to answer to. Craig calls sometimes, usually late at night, usually asking for one more chance. I let it go to voicemail every time. Some doors, once you understand what was hiding behind them, are meant to stay shut for good. People ask me sometimes if I regret standing up in that courtroom in front of my entire extended family. I always give them the same answer. I didn't lose a brother that day. I found out I never actually had one. And sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't the one written in a will. It's the truth that reaches you just before you sign your name away. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments. Would you have walked into that hospital room, or would fear have kept you in the car? I read every single one. And if this story kept you watching, hit subscribe. The next one might be even harder to believe.
Thank you watching for this video. If you like this video, please subscribe for upcoming new videos. Thank you. Bye.